Hi, everyone. Before I start, there's a lot to cover today, but just three formalities. First of all, I'd like to thank Raisins and the Malaysian Blockchain Association and the organizer for inviting me here today. The second formality is obviously, while my organization is adopting new technologies like blockchain, the views here are expressed are my personal views. And the third thing is, given the fluidity, obviously entrepreneurs, a number of you in a journey of learning what blockchain, ICO, DLT, what does it all mean? So let me just walk you through that journey. So this is what we're going to cover. Lots to cover in the next few minutes, but let me just try to make sure I give you a high overview on this. So there are three concepts constantly that evolves and was talked about earlier. The first thing we talk about is cryptocurrencies. So what are those? Is cryptocurrencies in its most basic form is a digital and virtual currency that use cryptograph to validate securities and transactions. The next thing is blockchain. So blockchain and cryptocurrencies are not synonymous, but a number of the cryptocurrencies, most of it, rely on blockchain technology for their use case. So blockchain is a secured distributed ledger that allows parties to digitally record transactions and without the need of a central counterparty or intermediary. And then you have ICOs. So ICOs is an innovative fundraising initiative. So typically when parties raise funds in the typical world, you either get VC venture capitalists or you go via the traditional route of an IPO, which obviously requires security registration and meeting strict requirements. So the next thing we want to talk about is where are we in the ICO market trends? In 2017, lots of ICOs have been launched and people are making 3x, 4x, and 5x. But in the current environment, in the bearish environment, notwithstanding where the cryptocurrency is, you could see that the fundraising is still very vibrant. If you look at this year, EOS, Telegram, and Filecoin have raised at least combination of it close to $6 billion. So the ICO environment for some of these names still attract a lot of funding. As you can see from the chart, it's still a very vibrant economy. So the third point is, where are these use cases going? Where are the industry? Where is it heading? If you look at it, most of the ICO consideration are going to network, they're going to blockchain platform, and they're going to finance and banking. And obviously, this is only going to grow in terms of the sectors that we talk about. So the third point we want to talk about is ICOs by country. So which are the top countries that raise ICOs? Obviously, you have US, countries by origin, you have Russia, not least in Southeast Asia. Singapore is one of the main hubs for raising funding, and you have a number of these key regions where these fundings are attracting a lot of investors. So first thing we need to off the back is, the next point I want to talk about is, what are the differences with all these payments? So if I can categorize the way we looked at, you've got to look at it in three categories. You have payment tokens, which typically used as a mode of payment. You have utility tokens for the purpose of allowing for applications. And then you have asset tokens, which behave like a security, looks like securities, and enables parties to participate in the form of dividend, equities, and securities. So different countries have different terminology what a cryptocurrency is. Unfortunately, in the current environment, there is no universally accepted definition of a cryptocurrencies. If you could see at the top, different countries call it differently. Some call it commodities, some call it assets, some call it digital intangibles, and some of them are defined as payment. In the case of Japan, they have enabled it as a legal tender. So this just to give a feel of the main regulations we talk about in the main jurisdiction outside of ASEAN. You see, China is on the extreme end where they have taken the approach that they are not going to allow ICOs, they're not going to allow trading currencies. They basically have banned all onshore activities. So, but then you look at more progressive jurisdictions like Japan, Australia, and Switzerland, they come up with very specific enable blockchain and crypto regulations to enable the raising of these ICOs for purposes of real applications on a blockchain. And then you have countries like USA, which obviously currently there are multiple regulators defining how do I define a cryptocurrencies, how do I define ICO. Depending on the jurisdiction, in the case of CFTC, they've defined it as commodities. In the case of SEC, for payment for asset token, they define it as securities. So that's key. So what about ASEAN? So the picture of ASEAN is an evolving one. You are bucketing into countries that are progressive, like Malaysia, Singapore, and even Thailand, which has been very strict beginning of the year. As of the 1st of August, Thailand have come up with new regulations enabling even financial institutions setting up subsidiaries to get into digital assets activities, whether it's brokerage, whether it's fund management, and whether enabling those ecosystems to enable blockchain. So in that current environment, we could see more progressive regime enabling this blockchain. So a couple of things, while people are looking at startups, what kind of key considerations you need to? So obviously this list is not exhaustive. You need to look at ICO, which entity you want to set up, which jurisdiction, what rules apply. Am I doing a utility token? Am I doing a payment token? Am I doing an asset token? It all means different things. AML, anti-money laundering, KYC requirements are only going to increase. So the initial launch of ICO, people do not look at this. Increasingly, regulations are here to stay. So people are having regard to all these considerations. So a couple of things to bear in mind is these are the key ecosystem. Look at blockchain regulations. You look at fundraising rules. More importantly, you look at cross-border. So because if you use blockchain, your investors are not necessarily within the same country. It's agnostic. Blockchain is international. You look at, are you targeting countries in which there are restrictive regulations? If so, those regulations would apply. So what are the challenges being faced by cryptocurrency operators? You have increasingly banking license you need to comply with, high cost of regulations, profitability, cross-border rules, tax regime as well. Notwithstanding the fact that you might have a good business proposition, but in a very restrictive tax environment, that doesn't play out very well. So, a couple of takeaways. Increase of regulation here to stay. Do your own due diligence. KYC, AML, and combating of financing of terrorism activities is key. So, last but not least, you've got to comply with applicable laws. So, this is where we are, ladies and gentlemen, in terms of evolution of blockchain. For those of you who started this journey in 2008, starting from the Satoshi white paper, we have come a long way. If you look at where we are right now, from growing pains to early adoptions to a defining moment in 2017, in 2018, it's about sustaining growth. This year alone, we see mainstream regulators like the G20, IOSCO, BCBS, and even regulators embracing this technology. And just on the 10th of August, World Bank has just announced the world's first blockchain-based bond issuances. And just to give you a sense how big that is, World Bank issues 50 to 60 billion worth of bonds on an annual basis. So this is only going to grow. So just bear in mind the future of blockchain is bright, but at the same time, what parties should grapple with is rules like AML, KYC are here to stay. So in October, if you look at the chart on 2018, 2020, the G20 countries are going to come out with a guidance, a global standards on how to regulate ICOs, cryptocurrencies on a global basis. What that tells us is that regulators have come to the point that they're not going to clamp down on these, but they do want to regulate this environment. So I think for those of you who are in the space, bear in mind that if you get into the regulation environment, you would attract at some point the mainstream and institutional investors. So obviously the institutional investors are watching the space. Just last month, one of the top sort of asset management, BlackRock, have just announced that they've assembled a team of experts looking at the blockchain as well as cryptocurrencies, studying whether it will form a viable asset class as part of their portfolio allocation. So I think that, ladies and gentlemen, I don't need to convince you. What I would say is that for a number of institutions, the sort of attraction of blockchain, the future of blockchain is bright. But however, we are in the journey where what they want to do is do it in a measured manner, do it in a controlled manner, and therefore, this is what we have for the time that I have. And hopefully, this gives you a broad brush of where we are. Okay, last but not least, this is my contact on the LinkedIn. If you want to link me and ask any questions, feel free to do so. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you. Thank you.